What's happening outside the Disneyland Resort is not what we thought. There's fascinating new information that changes how we perceive this entire project, and perhaps even Disneyland Forward. This could be Disneyland Forward. And we're going to tell you everything right after we check in on Rise of the Resistance.
Hey, you're not authorized, please. Those are the prisoners.
Because we have a new development here as well. Scrim and scaffold up in front of Rise. We were here last week, the walls were up, and we were kind of like, were they really going to be doing stuff outside, out in the queue space? And sure enough, they are. There's a scrim and scaffold up. That's around that turret thing that separates the standby queue from the Lightning Lane queue. So there is definitely a refurb of some kind, paint and polish most likely, happening outside in the queue space. We're going to take a trip in and see if we can't spot anything. What I did find actually here was the smell of paint. My guess is that it's the rails, along the queue, although they do look quite a bit like they did before this. So I'm not sure I don't know what else they could be repainting other than those sort of black wavy sections in between the two posts that define the queue. I did, though, we got some before footage that shows that a lot of those rail sections were quite worn and chipped. And if you compare that to the B-roll that we just shot or showed you here, that does look to perhaps have been repainted. So signs of paint and polish happening in the queue. We did find another access denied sign. That is entering the cave as you make that right turn into the interior queue. Plus, these two scrims have been put up in those little window-like opportunities in the cave where you guys can look into or out of if you're in the caves. But they've got scrims up, which suggest that there is something happening, some sort of refurb happening inside the caves as well. And believe it or not, that's like literally the only thing that's happening right now at Disneyland other than this Galactic grill project. We saw that they had taken down the scrim and scaffold. There was paint happening there. They're redoing the paint job, the new color scheme. But that scrim and scaffold is down. But up now are these construction walls outside Galactic grill. So there's more happening on the ground, most likely, as opposed to up top. They're bringing that new paint scheme perhaps into the seating area. That's what's covered right now. It's just the seating area. Galactic grill, actually does go all the way around, by the way, these walls. If we can follow this up into the seating area, but the seating areas are still open on both sides. And the walls do turn left and go towards Buzz Lightyear, closing off that access to Galactic grill. You can't access Galactic grill from this side. It is still open, though. Galactic grill is still open. You can access it from the opposite side, where they have what looks to be maybe 4 windows open now. So they've trimmed the windows by half, but it is still open. It's going to affect perhaps your return times or how long it takes you to get food, but it is still open. Okay, I've made you wait long enough. Let's get out to Katella Avenue, right outside the Desert Palms Hotel, where we have seen more of that pink paint. The pink paint is coming almost all the way down to the corner of Katella and Harbor Boulevard. So this is a very extensive project that we've been watching. As we keep going forward, we've been seeing a lot of paint, a lot of activity here. They're getting ready for something. This is not that, by the way. These meridians that we're walking by, that's most likely for Run Disney. Taking a quick look here behind the gate, behind Raider Springs Racers. Lots of material back there. They're still working on whatever that is. Now stick around because I think there's a possibility. We've been saying in previous episodes that this is not related necessarily to what's happening backstage around Disneyland Drive and with regard to Coco. And that is kind of still true, but there's been a huge plot twist. I think there's been a huge plot twist on what's happening out here at this intersection. Let's go further. Now that's Katella. If we get to the corner, the situation the same here. This situation has been the same for maybe 3 or 4 weeks now, where we've seen the gate opened up back there. There's nothing really happening backstage still, except for these 2 lighting instruments. There are lighting instruments right along, portable too, by the way. There's ones you can tow around. Portable lighting instruments. So they're doing stuff at night, but what that is, we still can't tell. Obviously, the street is still closed going down Disneyland Drive at the corner of Katella and Disneyland Drive. That situation has not changed at all. These cones are up, though, because there's crew out there on the corner. Apparently, at certain times of day, there's a lot of congestion here at the intersection of Katella and Disneyland Drive, specifically this little section of the street as it goes towards Grand Californian. And I've got reason to believe that what they're doing here is just trying to create a little more space, widening this stretch. You can see how it kind of narrows as after the right turn, it kind of narrows in that direction. It may be they're just trying to widen this. They're just trying to push that back a little bit. That's why we've only seen them take the sidewalk. We got to look further. Crossing the street, looking at things from the opposite angle. So we're not going to be able to see anything here. There's the crew that I was talking about and the reason why they had those cones out. We're not going to be able to see anything from the ground because we're too far detached, too far away and on the same level. What we need to do is get up and above. So let's get into the Pixar Place Hotel and see if we can't really nail down what we think is going on here at Disneyland Drive. Last week, we mentioned we were curious. Why is it that they were taking only the sidewalk? They took only the sidewalk and not even the concrete behind. Look behind the curved portion there. That concrete is still there. Why did they only take the part that runs parallel with Disneyland Drive? Why didn't they take the landscaping? They took a couple trees and they did clear some stuff out. They definitely did, but not all of it. It's almost as if they were trying to preserve the curved landscaping there, right? That's thought-provoking, is it not? And I don't have an answer to that, or I didn't at the time because I just figure I'm too stupid to know the answer. But as I just mentioned before, what it sounds like is happening this is from secondary sources, by the way. So I haven't been able to vet this in any way. These are sources that, well, it sounds legitimate. They're trying to push those two lanes into the sidewalk area. Let's try to clarify things. That's Coco, right? That's the backstage area behind Incredicoaster and Emotional Whirlwind, etc. That we pretty much know is going to be future Coco. At least that's what the common understanding is. Everybody seems to be in agreement on that. That's the expansion area. That's the area that's been subject to demo right now. What the trees are coming down and the landscaping and stuff like that, and the sidewalk. That's the assumption there was Coco was going to expand. They were going to become one big space, or at least create more space for Coco by moving the service road, etc., into that expansion area, pushing the boundaries of backstage out closer to Disneyland Drive. Now that's Disneyland Drive. What I'm being told is that they're not taking down that landscaped area and that sidewalk in order to expand Coco. They want to push Disneyland Drive into that space, probably right up into where those arrows are pointing, probably right up into the sidewalk area, where the sidewalk is torn out. That's probably why we still haven't seen them remove the landscape, the curved Mickey ear landscape area. That makes a lot of sense. Now, as I mentioned, this is not vetted in any kind of way. I'm only hearing this secondhand, so I can't say for sure if this is the reality, as much as I'd like to. But I want to give myself room to being wrong. You know what I mean? Not to say that I'm now saying that I could be wrong about our initial plan or initial thoughts for Coco. This could be wrong as well, but it makes a lot of sense when considering our confusion just a week ago, where we're trying to make sense of what it is that they're doing and what it is that they're not doing with that stretch. For example, they didn't even fence off the corner way down there in the corner. Where the white truck is, they didn't even fence that area off. That's still wide open, and that's actually prime real estate. Really, when you talk about pushing boundaries, that's pretty prime real estate right there. That's the most real estate that we've seen out of all this space in terms of it being just not like a long thin rectangle, because you can't really do much with a long thin rectangle in terms of expansion other than just pushing the boundaries out. But I do still think they are eventually going to have to do something with that space on that corner there because of what I asked myself, why? Why do they need to extend Disneyland Drive? Why do they need to push that out? And the only thing I could think of was buses. Buses, because that require a better turn radius, which they may or may not have at this corner, at the corner of Disneyland Drive and Katella. That's the only thing that makes sense to me because, as I mentioned earlier, the reports were there was congestion on this corner, which I've never seen. There's congestion on Ball and Disneyland Drive, which is a total nightmare sometimes. But this side of the street, I've never really experienced that. Although I'm not here often, I'm not here all day, so it's difficult for me to say whether or not that's true. I don't think there's so much traffic happening here that it requires them to go through all this effort. Unless what they're doing is for something that they're expecting to happen, as in perhaps Disneyland Forward. I feel like this could be an early stage of preparations for what's going to happen. There's many dominoes that must fall here, but this could be one of the earlier preparations for Disneyland Forward. Now, remember, part of the agreement, by the way, for Disneyland Forward was $85 million. Disney promised or committed $85 million to the city of Anaheim to help improve areas around the park, to upgrade the streets, etc., around the Disneyland Resort, better traffic flow, better pedestrian safety, because they want to improve that, especially out there on Harbor and Katella, exactly where we're seeing all that pink paint, how it's been growing in that direction. This very well could be part of that. It's the Disneyland Forward that's actually happening. Right now, there's the Disneyland Forward that we want to happen, and that's park expansion, new lands, new attractions, etc. But a large part of Disneyland Forward, in terms of Disney and the city of Anaheim, was to make things better. They're promising all this money to help make the resort better, safer, more visitable to guests. And by the way, while we're on that topic, what's going on out there at Katella could be not so much about street widening. I think they could be working on taking power and data lines and moving them underground. That's a common thing that's been happening in a lot of metro cities. A lot of metro cities are moving their power and data services below grade, underground, for a variety of really positive reasons. It's kind of antiquated having these big, tall power lines out there throughout our cities. Well, whether or not that's what they're doing now, because I don't, like I said, I'm just too stupid to really know what's going on, and I can't read permits in that sense, and I can't see the future, and I can't read things as well as other people have. I don't know how to look at schematics and say, yes, that's what they're doing. But I know that that's a part of the Disneyland Forward expansion, is creating a better environment around the park for Disney guests. Let me take this opportunity to ask you guys, if you are planning to make a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World, a cruise, Alani, even Universal, if you're planning a trip, please do consider using our preferred travel affiliate, GetAwayToday. We have been partnered with them for years and years and years, and we are just so happy with them. They are the best in the business at helping you plan your trip in the best possible way, the way a Disneyland fan would plan your trip, because they are the Disneyland fans. They love Disneyland. They love going to Walt Disney World. And so they can translate their love to you by helping you plan your vacation. Contact GetAwayToday using the link in the description and let them know that Fresh Bake sent you. Let's take a look at things from above again. Google Earth, that is the Disneyland Resort. Basically, that's the rough outline of the Disneyland Resort, including that left third, which is the Simba parking lot, the Disneyland Hotel, the Picture Place Hotel, the Disneyland Hotel parking lot, cast member parking, and then at the very top, that's the Mickey and Friends parking structure. Where we're talking about right now, that's Katella on the bottom. That's where we're seeing all that pink paint. That's Disneyland Drive, where we've been watching the trees get removed. And where basically the area in question is right up until you get to the drive part of the little text area. That's the Grand Californian. Everything stops once you reach the Grand Californian. And then that's Magic Way. That's the Magic Way is the road that connects Walnut on the very left perimeter of this image to Disneyland Drive. And it's an important part of connecting those two streets, creating relief, and also it's an access to the Pixar Palace parking structure, Magic Way. Again, part of the Disneyland Forward agreement was that Disney was going to take over management of that road. Disney now the city of Anaheim does not do any sort of management. Disney paid $40 million to privatize that road. I think that their goal was at one point perhaps to also take over Disneyland Drive. And that could be one of the reasons why we're seeing them do this work. But as I understand it, the work that is being done, Disneyland Drive is still run and managed by the city. And it is the city that is executing these updates to the grounds, perhaps as part of the agreement with Disneyland. But it is the city of Anaheim that's doing all of this. But the reason why I'm showing you this in terms of our conversation with Disneyland Forward is because, as you know, Disneyland Forward is right next door. Okay, so that's the Simba lot is Disneyland Forward in the future. The cast member parking lot and the Disneyland Hotel parking lot, that's also subject to expansion for Disneyland Forward. So the work that's being done here could all be in such an early stage of preparation for that. Maybe not, it has nothing to do with Coco at all. I mean, Coco is going to happen, but it's possible, and this could be why we're not seeing any sort of relationship between what's happening outside on Disneyland Drive and what's happening inside the proper, the backstage areas where they're gonna build Coco. No movement, nothing is happening back there. Nothing is happening. I've talked to people who work back there, and they're saying no, nothing is happening. Nothing has been moved out. There's no surveying. There's no dirt. There's no anything. Nothing's going on right now backstage Coco, but there are things happening that could be considered as related to Disneyland Forward. That section, that left third, is going to be very important in the next year or two. And by the way, let me just go ahead and also mention, I've heard a rumor, again, this is a secondary source, so I haven't been able to vet it in any other way, that there might be shovels in the ground as early as this summer in the Simba parking lot. Or at least, perhaps working towards that. Maybe closing the lot, surveying, things like that. I'm going to have to go back out there. Ooh, I got to go out to the Simba lot and see if there's any new paint out there. No matter what, stay tuned to Fresh Baked for the next decade. Because that's what it's going to be here. All this is happening is just the very first tiny little domino of what could be Disneyland Forward, and then eventually Coco as well. So those are our views. Exciting things happening from the Pixar Place Hotel. I'm hoping that we get to keep going up there. It looks wonderful from up here. I'm really loving this view. Let's get into DCA. But on the way, we're going to pass through downtown Disney, where everything is situation normal here. The trams are operating as normal. There's been no extension of the walls or anything like that. Guests are still able to walk freely through downtown Disney. The news here, though, is that Earl of Sandwich or La Brea Bakery, whichever you prefer, is now completely gone. Every bit of it has been destroyed, even the 4 concrete support columns, which were hanging around there for a little while. Those are gone, too. It is now total and dust. Earl of Sandwich, La Brea Bakery is nothing but dust. The excavator back there is just moving stuff around. So they've joined the ticket booths here on the left. Those are gone. They are preparing. They're moving quickly in grading that soil down there and getting it ready for a new foundation. We heard, as a matter of fact, the sound of something breaking concrete back there. There's a ruckus going on back there. There it is. You hear that? I think that's the sound of them breaking foundation. At first I thought it was the excavator doing that, but it's not. The excavator is still just moving debris. But that sound, I think, is, well, you know what, we'll have to maybe see it from the monorail perhaps if we're lucky. Although it'll probably be too late. But I'm pretty sure there's something down there breaking up foundation. All right, well, let's get on the monorail, see if we can't find anything out here. As I mentioned, it gets difficult to do this because it's hard to shoot in slow motion and also zoom. Passing by those trees, there is the scrim out in front of Earl's, and yeah, there's nothing left. We can't see all the way to the ground, though. So it's difficult to tell. I couldn't even see equipment, like, what are they, a pile driver? What do they call that? No, not pile driver. What do they call that? The concrete breaking tool that breaks up what the foundation is in the ground already. They take it out, and then they build new foundation. They have to build new foundation because the base of this restaurant is going to be considerably larger than what was there previously. I think the footprint of the new Portos is probably, 3 times the size of Earl's Sandwich, La Brea Bakery. But yeah, nothing to see down there. I do see some lighting instruments perhaps, so they are doing a lot of work here overnight as well. We'll get into DCA now to check in on Incredicoaster, which is still closed. That'll be reopening on February 6th, but there was a lot of action. We just saw a car leave the station there, and as I walked around the space, just kind of taking things in, they're still, it looks like they are doing a little bit more paint and polish on that queue space down there. I see some painter's tape down there. But everywhere I looked, it seemed like there was another vehicle on the track. There goes an Incredicoaster there, down the screen tube. There goes another one up, or that's the same one, up. Or I don't know if that was the same one or not. Making its round trip. There he goes, about ready to do the loop. There we go. There was probably 4 vehicles on the track while I was there. If we jump across the pier here, there he goes. There's one launching. So they are actively testing vehicles. Again, this is very early. We are still a week away from test or from opening. No, they don't normally test vehicles like this aggressively a week before reopening, which suggests to me that they've got nothing else to do. They've got nothing else to do. They're waiting for something else to be done. So they're just going to test vehicles and make sure everything's fine while they wait for whatever else that is that there to be done that's happening perhaps backstage. We'll get on the Pixar pal around. I mean, Avengers Infinity Defense, ladies and gentlemen. There it is. Okay. I wish I had more to show you. I wish there was something that I could show you that's more interesting here, but we are definitely in a very boring phase of development at Avengers Infinity Defense. Same right now for the restrooms that are happening behind the cozy cones. The cinder block, shell is complete, but they're still working on everything else. It doesn't look like anything at this moment. There's another look backstage, at the Avengers Infinity Defense. There's still truss system on the ground. They have still not put up all of that truss system. I was pretty busy in the park this morning, so they were filling up the gondolas pretty full, and so I wasn't able to get a shot of backstage, where they're building Coco. I wasn't able to get a shot back there, but I was able to look with my eyes, and of course there's nothing new there. And now I'm starting to wonder if I should be expecting anything at all, considering what's happening out there in Disneyland Drive and what I think is happening anyway. I'm wondering if we're not close at all, if any part of what they're doing back there, out there, with all the trees and everything on Disneyland Drive has anything to do with Coco. I have to reevaluate everything because there is nothing happening in that back corner back there behind Coco. They're not even getting ready, it looks like. Now, having said that, there is still a Run Disney event happening this weekend. It's happening tomorrow, I think? Yeah, tomorrow. February 2nd, so that's Sunday. So time will tell. I guess we check back in next weekend and see what happens. I was on my way to Grizzly Peak or Grizzly River Run when I found this at Redwood Creek. There's walls up. There's something happening on that little section as you pass through the giant sequoia and you make that U-turn where the waterfall is on the far right border, and then the scrim extends all the way to where the stairs are, where you take the stairs to do the rope bridge. The water's off, obviously. I mean, that doesn't shock me at all. But I don't know what they're doing here. I don't know what they're doing here. That is pretty interesting. What could they possibly be doing? I did try to peek through the walls. Nothing's happening. They're staging, but I can't see anything torn up. I also did climb those stairs. There's the other end of that wall to see if I can see anything from the rope bridge section at Redwood Creek. But all I can see is just that wood. I don't know if that's wood coming out or new wood going in. But that's all we can see there. We can't see any. There's no demo. Nothing's been cleared. The waterfall is still there. It's just not on. So it's very difficult to tell what's happening back there or what they're doing. I did find this guy though. That is a praying mantis. Cool, right? Anyway, okay. Grizzly River Run. New scrim and scaffold up around the wheel. Although it's not the wheel itself. The wheel, I don't think they're doing anything on the wheel. It's to the left of that. Probably, again, paint and polish. There's no water. Obviously, they're still working on that. But there was no ongoing maintenance happening here at the time when I was there. Nor could I see them doing anything at all to the geysers. The geysers do not appear to be being worked on at this moment. No action. Here's an interesting development. Napa. I've been paying attention to seeing, how close we are to getting to completion. What I think I see tables and chairs. I think I see place settings through the vegetation there, we'll get a better look. But to its left, I was wondering why they built another fireplace to the left. Guys, that's new seating. Where the yellow vests, there's doors there. There's 2 doors there. They built, I don't know if that's there before, but there's 2 doors. Those guys are going in and out. There are tables and chairs out there. They're putting seating. They've created another, maybe 3 tables out there, perhaps, and a fire pit. So that's done in addition. There you see the scrim and scaffold. They've kind of closed that area off. And then here's a look in the proper seating area. Yes, definitely. Those look like napkins. There are napkins at Napa Rose, everybody. Red alert. Napkins are at Napa Rose. That's a huge sign. By the way, on our way to Soarin', we could hear, that's the backside of Earl's right there. You can hear again. Massive foundation being torn up back there. Let's go to Cars Land to show you that there's nothing to report here. Nothing new anyway. That's still there. We're still waiting for them to finish that. We'll go to Avengers Campus and check out Infinity Defense from the ground. Yawn, nothing to speak of here. Nothing magical, nothing interesting. This is more interesting. The construction walls are still up around the old Tower of Terror Fast Pass kiosk. The demo is not complete yet on that, but they're working on putting in some more tables and chairs out there. Mission Breakout, man. Okay, so I stood there for a while. And yeah, it was just Alpha and Bravo. There goes Bravo. It was just Alpha and Bravo running, which resulted in I think what was it? Yes, no, was that 65 minutes? 65-minute wait time. Very busy here at Mission Breakout. Busy day here on this Friday. Normally I don't talk about crowds or on a construction report. I just felt like reporting that because it's so different than what we've been seeing the past couple of weeks. Matter of fact, I ran into a guest who asked me, he's like, what's going on? Is there anything going on? And I was like, no, I think it's just a discounted ticket. But then almost immediately after that, I realized that it's probably Run Disney. It's the Run Disney weekend. And so I don't know how many people go to that event. It's got to be, obviously in the thousands. And if they're running, they're probably going to Disneyland also. So I saw a bunch of people jogging on Katella this morning when I was doing our construction out there too. So the runners are here. Here's something we haven't checked in for a while. Desert Palms, the backside of Avengers Infinity Defense. I mean, they've really closed up that building from the rear side. That was completely visible this side the last time we checked in. So there's been a lot of progress happening there. This kind of, I can't figure that out. If I zoom in, hopefully you can see it. There's some horizontal steel happening, but at an angle. Like I can't tell how that's connecting. That's a building. The steel is extending from within that secondary building, the 2-story building on the right. And then they're really closing things up on this side. This is the side of Avengers that faces Harbor Boulevard. So they're closing that thing up. It's getting buttoned up quickly. We're going to go back to downtown Disney. We mentioned last week that the signage was visible for Gordon Ramsay's Carnaby at Orla Sandwich, the Orla Sandwich downtown Disney. But it looks like they have closed that up. So that was just for a photo op, apparently. Gordon Ramsay was there in downtown Disney, like maybe the same day or the day after I shot it. But that's been buttoned up as well. So I was right, at least, that they didn't have to do that. That was for some reason to get people excited. Meanwhile, over here, okay, so we've got Avengers Reserve, the D-Lander shop, Nectar Life, and then this little lost, forgotten soul at the far corner. Nothing is happening. There was supposed to be a 4th retail store here, right next to Earl's, and right next to that giant support column. Totally, this confuses me now seeing this, getting back here. I don't know nothing about retail operations. I sold shoes for a little while at the mall, but if I were that's like the worst possible location. I can't imagine somebody being like, yeah, give me some of that. I want to pay. Well, I don't even know what the rent is here, but it's got to be astronomical. I know that downtown Disney is known for having ridiculously high rents. To do what? That's a lot of stores don't make it here, or they suffer, and that's why Disney has to take over some of these locations because the margins are so thin and it's difficult to be profitable here. I don't know how anybody survives back there in that corner. Lego store. We're waiting for whatever it is that they're doing on the right side of the entrance door. There's going to be another Lego sculpture here, but the left one, the Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent Dragon scene is done. They've taken the walls down, revealing the entire experience. That looks like they're having some kind of grand opening type situation there out in front of the Lego store, but that's done. Looks great. Can't wait for them to finish the other side. We're going to go to Tortilla Joe's, where nothing is happening at all. The walls are right where they are, and the walls are right where they've been. And when I say nothing, I mean literally nothing. There's the bucket. The bucket has not moved. The bucket will be an indicator. If that bucket moves, then we know they're up to something. We'll wrap up with a summary of the attraction closers as we know them today. Grizzly River Run closed. No known date still. We still have no known date for Grizzly River Run. Incredicoaster is closed today, but that'll be reopening on Friday, February 6th. We'll hope to ride that day. Jumpin' Jellyfish closing on February 23rd, reopening on March 6th. Ooh, this is new. They've added the Golden Zephyr. The Golden Zephyr is closing on March 9th. No known date. By the way, note that March 9th date. That means the fact that we don't have a date for Grizzly River Run suggests that it's going to be at least until March 9th for that one as well. Considering how the refurb calendar only works in 45-day stretches. So it's going to be at least another 45 days or into March for Grizzly River Run. Rise of the Resistance closed. No known date yet for that. Ogus Cantina closed, but we have a date for that one. Ogus is reopening on March 14th. So that's 24 days. That's 3.5 weeks that Ogus will be closed. Time enough for them to maybe make some updates for the original trilogy. Small World is closed right now to take down the holiday overlay, reopening on February 6th. That'll be this coming Friday. And then Jungle Cruise on the calendar for February 17th. No known date. So we're looking at least a month right now for Jungle Cruise. There you go, guys. That's our show for this week. Thank you very much for watching. We love you. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. And fresh baked.